Teach me, Lord, to praise you, Lord. Teach me, Lord, to praise.
Praise You, Lord is a Catholic Christian praise and worship radio ministry. Hi, my name is Jeffrey Zacharias. Please join us as we give praise, honor, and glory to our loving, awesome, and merciful God. He is truly loving and He is merciful. And welcome to Praise You, Lord, episode number 124. We're so grateful to have you listening in on the broadcast today, and we have really a special broadcast today. I'm so excited to have three outstanding and wonderful people here with us on Praise You, Lord, number 124, the underground independent Catholic Christian radio broadcast brought to you once a week. And sometimes we do a lot on music. This time we have things, as Bryce had mentioned, down about 50-50. We've got two sports people and two musical people, myself and Jeff Millar Sax. And Billy Horn, Coach Horn, is here by my side, and a very old friend, almost 20 years. I'm so close with Billy that on holidays I'm often eating cake and drinking cappuccinos with his family. Right, Bill?
That's absolutely correct.
Billy, Coach Horn, how are you today?
I'm doing outstanding. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a blessing.
Thank you, Billy. And Jeff Millar Sax is no stranger to the program. He's calling in from Los Angeles. Actually, greater Los Angeles, California. How are you, Jeff?
Doing wonderful. Feeling really blessed to be back. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, and so grateful. And the all-star of the show here is Bryce. And Bryce, it's Bryce Weiler, correct?
Yes, that is correct, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me on. It's going to be a great experience telling some of my stories of what I've done in sports and listening to Jeff and Jeffrey discuss their musical talents and time in music, and also visiting with my good friend, Coach Billy Horn, who I met last season when he was with the High Point Rockers during the 2019 season.
That is great, Bryce. And Bryce, maybe you could be the point person on this to kind of start us off. You're very well spoken. We've had probably 5 or 6 conversations on the phone over the last several months trying to get something going here in the music aspect of your beautiful non-for-profit. Could you kind of give an introduction to who you are and what you're doing?
I was born 4 months premature, and when I was younger, the retinas in my eyes did not form properly, and that caused me to be blind because when I was in the hospital, I was given too much oxygen, which caused me to have retinopathy of prematurity. Maybe at some point they will be able to put a microchip in my eyes that can cause me to have some vision, but that hasn't been established and accomplished as of yet. I do a plethora of things. I am the disability consultant for the Orioles in Baltimore. I've been doing that since June of 2016. I've done several interesting things with the Orioles. First of all, in September of 2018, I helped the team, Baltimore, become the first ever MLB team and team in sports, for that matter, to wear Braille on their jerseys to honor people who are blind and show the importance of individuals who are blind learning how to read Braille. This year, my most intriguing thing with Baltimore's team in 2019 was having fans of various disabled groups playing on the field with the Orioles players and coaches before their second to last home game against the Seattle Mariners on September the 21st of 2019. So that's a portion of what I do. I'm also the advocacy officer and the co-founder of a nonprofit called the Beautiful Lives Project. We work to give individuals of all disabled groups the opportunity to take part in programs all across the country with things with sports teams, cheerleading teams, dance teams, ballet teams. And we were really struggling to get our our music programs going. This is a hard thing for Jeffrey, and even Coach Billy Horn to understand, but I'm not an individual who enjoys listening to music very much, or even music much at all, for that matter. So I met Coach Horn when I spoke to his High Point Rockers team back in August. Had a great chat speaking to their manager, Jamie Keefe, and the High Point Rockers players about my life and overcoming obstacles and challenges. And I told Coach Horn, I'm trying to get these programs going with my nonprofit where people can experience music, singing, doing things before a concert, playing with a band. I don't really like music myself personally, so it's been a struggle for me to find musical individuals to help me. And Coach Horn told me about Jeffrey, and we got connected on the phone, and we've been chatting music. And I don't know much about music, but Jeffrey does, so that's a good thing.
Bryce, you are a funny guy, man. Coach Horn had warned me that Bryce is very funny, and I said, you know what, I kind of caught some of that in some of our conversation, but now it's really becoming evident. Boy, you really your synopsis was pretty remarkable. I mean, you were able to get that all out, and I don't know how long, but it was pretty incredible. Bryce, that's an interesting story. I'm learning myself about your story. I know some things, but I didn't know about your how it all started and the unfortunate accident, I guess you could say, in the hospital.
I mean, thoughts on medicine in the 1990s were a lot different. So they thought, giving children lots of oxygen would help them, but it actually hurt them. So
my goodness. Wow.
They don't really do that now.
You're such a great example, Bryce, of someone who has taken, if you don't mind me asking, what is your age, Bryce?
I'm 28.
Oh my goodness. I thought you were at least in your 30s, which I thought was quite young. Now, I know a lot of folks in their late 20s. Bill, Mr. Coach Horn here. I'm so used to calling him Billy, or Billy. He's always working with young folks because he's a professional baseball coach. I work with a lot of young adults as a mentor and musically and vocally at our studio here, and I, in the generations, it's very sad. Sometimes I find some people that they're not seeming to get much accomplished done in their early 20s. And Bryce, you've done so much, and you have a handicap that it's hard for me. I don't even think I could imagine what it would be like to not be able to see. And you're overcoming this obstacle and doing so much good for mankind. I'm so impressed by that. What has driven you to push forward like this and do such great work like that, and get so much accomplished?
Having my family help me when I was younger, taking me to doctor's appointments, or even helping me go to some St. Louis Cardinals games, to a few, and giving me the enjoyable opportunity of sitting behind home plate at Busch Stadium so I could hear the ball hitting off the bat and the crack of the ball hitting the catcher's glove, or the sound when it plops into the dirt when the pitcher didn't properly throw his pitch. So being able to do that laid the foundation for me. And then when I was in college at the University of Evansville, the former Evansville head men's basketball coach Marty Simmons gave me the opportunity to sit on his men's basketball bench, which further let me be around sports, with being able to shoot free throws before the games, throw passes with the players and coaches. So I was able to experience sports the best I could, from sitting as close as I could to the action in the stands, and sitting as close to the action as I could on Evansville's bench, or even my first experience in a baseball dugout with Coach Horn, Jamie Keefe, and the High Point Rockers back in August, which was a lot of fun for me. So, being fortunate enough to have those sports experiences with Marty Simmons letting me sit on the bench, and my family always being there for me and taking me to doctors in Detroit, Michigan, and St. Louis, and letting me go to Cardinals games, and helping me to be able to hear the game the best I could when there was a 7 to 8 second time delay on the radio broadcast. And then people like High Point's manager Jamie Keefe, Billy Horn, Marty Simmons letting me sit as close as I could to sports fields and courts and games really impacted my life. I also had many students in college that helped me out, both at the University of Evansville and at Western Illinois University in Macomb, who would help me get my food in the cafeteria, take me to speak to sports teams, and also give me the opportunity to help me to get to wherever I needed to get to. So all of those things combining together led me to want to give back to other groups of individuals who may be blind or deaf, having autism, in a wheelchair, whatever their disability might be, and to help them live their best life possible and be able to do the things they've dreamed about doing throughout their life, which I've been able to do throughout my life.
That's wonderful. Yeah, wow is right, Jeff. Please, Jeff.
I really enjoyed our first discussion on the phone on Wednesday, Bryce, but I am just quadruply impressed. You're a blessing. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm cyberly shaking your hand right now and doing the Wayne's World bow of we're not worthy, because you are a tremendous human.
Thanks for that. It's been enjoyable being able to visit with all of you, and thankful that Billy Horn was willing to put Jeffrey on the phone with me back in August, because I've spoken to many sports coaches that I'm friends with actually about my struggle to find individuals to do these musical programs and how I don't really like music. And I'm sure some of them had musical connections out of probably the 100 or more sports people I've explained this to, and they were never willing to do that. So for Coach Horn to do that made me really happy and really excited, because I've spent so much time trying to set these musical programs up, even though music isn't necessarily my favorite thing. For the people who music is their favorite thing, or they want to have that opportunity to experience music, I want to be able to bring that to them. So I spent a lot of time last year calling music agencies in Nashville and across the country and figuring out email formats so I could email CEOs of record companies and things like that. And I had some that were close to working out with getting me my first musical program, and it didn't work out because one time somebody got switched to a different department, and the second time I just didn't hear back from them anymore. So this was really exciting, and probably one of my proudest moments of 2019, just as we've also been expanding our nonprofit, setting up chapters all across the country. I'd say this is probably tied with that as one of the best moments of 2019, really getting these musical programs enhanced and started across the country.
That's exciting, really, for me to hear, Bryce. And may I mirror Jeff Millar Sax's sentiments. I mean, he's a much more eloquent speaker, I think, and more than I am. But yeah, I am really impressed and blessed to have you here on the broadcast, and honored that you would ask me to help you out on this in your foundation. And that all came through my good friend Billy next to me here, Coach Horn. And so that this is just, hearing these other parts of the story that I haven't heard, it really helps kind of place, where, I believe God puts me in places in time, where I was born. I believe we were born in a certain time, and I believe He puts people in front of us. This is my personal belief, of course. And so, to be, chosen, if you were, or invited, I guess, and to help out with this very, very important and just important mission, I guess you could say, that you're on, is just it's a blessing for me, Bryce, and I'm really humbled by your story. I really am. It's awesome. And to know that, I mean, because when Billy called, when Coach Horn contacted me, I said, sure, I'll give him a call. And I was thinking to myself, how can I help? What can I do to help? My thoughts were, I can't do anything to help. I'm running a business. I run this radio broadcast as a volunteer. Extremely busy. I have family responsibilities, normal stuff. It's like, how could I possibly help? I'm not rich. And so you and I Bryce, have been going back and forth and kind of strategizing. We have some plans to do something hopefully very special here at our studio down here in South Florida. We're targeting February, so I'm excited about that. What happened, though, for those who are listening in, is that Jeff Millar Sax and I were on the phone. I had just finished a production, or was working on a production and mixing and mastering it, of a full band in our studio, and I wanted Jeff's expert ears, because Jeff has worked with some of the best musicians in the world, and been involved as a producer, mixer, and been involved in mastering, and soup to nuts. He knows it. He's got phenomenal ears. Have incredible respect for Jeff Millar Sax in many ways, but that's just one of them. He's an outstanding human being, because he's the, for those who haven't heard before, he's the Giving Shelter guy. This is Jeff. This is the guy we play on the radio all the time that's got the Giving Shelter project. He's raising money for cancer patients and their families through his fundraiser that hopefully is going to become incorporated into it's givingshelter.net, right, Jeff? Givingshelter.net.
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll get back to that in a moment. We'll be playing one of Jeff's songs. But I contacted Jeff, long story shorter, and I was like, Jeff, please, could you listen to this? And he got back to me right away, which was so amazing. Thank you for that, Jeff. That helped me so much. It was
anytime.
So timely, Jeff. My gosh, what a help. And not only that, but we started, as usual, having conversation. We're very close. And he was sharing with me this project that he's involved with right now, immediately, this success story when it comes to working with people with disabilities in music. And that's exactly what Bryce wants to see take fire across the country, and probably even further, potentially. It's a big world out there, but let's start with the United States, I guess, right, Bryce?
That's right. Get it going well in one portion of the world, and then transition that to other portions of the world.
That would be wonderful. So, Jeff, tell us about your project that's happening just outside of California in your hometown.
That's going to stick with just outside of California, where I live. Which
just outside of California? Just outside of LA.
It's truly right. Essentially, I was asked to help out a fledgling band that was looking for a singer a few years ago, and I said yes. They wanted to do some things with their church and sing at the offertories and take rock classic songs and rewrite the lyrics to make them more faith-based. And I thought it would be a very interesting thing to do and a challenge, and it's something spiritual, so absolutely I'm all in for that. And I met these guys, and the drummer was practically deaf from tinnitus, and also 10 years prior had a massive heart attack that should have knocked him out. His brother, who was one of the two lead guitar players, is a functioning autistic. The other guitar player is probably the most dyslexic person I've ever met. The challenges that he had in learning songs, both he and the other guitar player, were astronomical. And then the bass player was a gentleman who was an ex-New York cop who had an injury on the job and only had the use of his first two fingers on his fretting hand, his left hand. So he was very limited in what he could do. And I was dealing with leukemia at the time. And
excuse me, Jeff. Could you speak up just a little more?
Sure,
you're coming in a little bit.
I went to the first couple of rehearsals, and this was, to me, it was like the movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, when they pick up guitars and all that comes out is a cacophony of sound. And these gentlemen needed help. They were all very deeply good humans, solid humans. They left their egos at the door eons ago. So they were willing to work, and we worked really hard and became a working band, getting gigs and getting money and playing local festivals and being asked to play at at local community events, and even achieved playing at the church a couple of times, which was their original goal. But by that time, they were a working band. I finally had to leave the band, and the drummer, Russ Anderson, continued. Unfortunately, he had a massive heart attack and died at the end of August. So the second I got the call from the bass player saying that he had a heart attack and they don't know if he's going to make it, and then he called back 5 minutes later and told me that he had passed, another former member of the band called me, and I said to him, we need to do a benefit to help Russ's wife, Valerie. She's diabetic. She really doesn't have the financial means to keep the house or really keep going. So we decided to round up all the musicians who had played with Russ, either in the band after me, with the church, or in the community. And we've got about 20 musicians, including the dyslexic guitarist who had relocated to outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. He's flying in. And we're putting on a show at a local microbrewery that's given us the room. The local paper is giving us press for free. Local printer has printed out flyers and posters, and the community is just really rallying around this event, which is very exciting. I cannot tell you how blessed I feel to be a part of it. But the thing that I don't know how to say this except to say that I'm most proud of was how these guys who couldn't, they sounded like Bill and Ted in the movie, became a cohesive working band, and they really found a way to learn and to thrive through their music. The dyslexic guitar player is actually finally learning how to read. He's been functioning most of his life without really being able to read, but through the music he can do that now. Russ's brother, who is a functioning autistic, has stretched a little bit outside of his comfort zone because of this. It's just really exciting to see, and so I guess I'm the clinical trial for Bryce's effort to show that it can be done.
Right. I mean, you've been doing it, and it's happening, and it's happening publicly now, for a very, very important benefit on a local level. And a lot of the great things that happen, they don't necessarily have to be read in the paper for them to be wonderful. People are doing wonderful things all around us, and I'm just so grateful to have this little volunteer mission here that was started off on one very small Catholic radio station and then got picked up by another. So we thank 98.3 FM, the Catholic Voice of the Palm Beaches, for giving us a beginning, and then 100.1 FM up in the Treasure Coast of Florida as well. We're down in South Florida, for those who are listening. That's where we start from, and that's where we record, down in the Palm Beaches. Excuse me. And then later we got picked up by Catholic Radio Network, and that's 3 more states. So that's most of Denver, Kansas, and Missouri. And we're being covered in 18 mega stations now there. And then furthermore, I got in Michael here to my right, our all-star intern, who's been extremely helpful. This is all voluntary, so having that extra person is so important. And then Jackson Messick, who couldn't be here today, who's doing some of the co-hosting. They together, Jackson doing a lot of the heavy lifting, have these beautiful podcasts made out of these programs. So we have many podcasts. Anyone who wants to listen to these broadcasts in the future can hear them on Google Play, iTunes, Spotify. They're up on YouTube, up on Podbean, and so on. So, it started off with this small yes to a half-hour show, and then they said, we want to give you a full hour. And here we are today, almost 4 years later, and now I'm next to Billy Horn, who was a good friend. I've really grown with. I've met one of the first people I became friendly with in South Florida when I first moved here in 2000. Jeff Millar Sax on the line, who's just such a big, wonderful friend of mine, and someone who's come and contributed on our program quite frequently. And we really believe in his ministry, raising money for cancer patients and their families. Check out that at what is your website again, please?
GivingShelter.net.
GivingShelter.net, and that's a very, check that out. That's important. And now Bryce Weiler, who's now new to the fold here of Praise You Lord and part of the family. Bryce, you're going to be on our hearts, and we hope that people donate if that's what you need. I mean, can we make donations to your foundation? Is that something that you're equipped to receive?
If people would like to donate, they can go to our website, www.beautifullives.org. They can mail checks in. There's information for that. They can also email myself or anyone on our Beautiful Lives staff if they would like to become a chapter president anywhere in the world or the country. We can train them how to do that. It takes about $10,000 to $15,000 to get a Beautiful Lives chapter running. So any donations we get go towards helping new chapters start across the world or the country, wherever someone wants to start one, or we convince someone to start one. So people can email me at Bryce, BRYCE, at beautifullives.org, Bryce at beautifullives.org. They can also call me if they would like. My phone number is 812-899-5673, 812-899-5673.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bryce. And so that is Bryce Weiler, and he is the amazing young man who is blind and who is not only doing such good for so many people with disabilities in the sports arena, particularly with collaboration with the Baltimore Orioles in Major League Baseball, but also with other sports teams and other forms of sports. And that's how we got to know Bryce here at Praise You Lord, because Billy Horn, my very good friend to my right in the studio, is a professional baseball coach, and Billy is just a treasure of a friend. And Billy, why don't you tell the folks, I think, how we met.
Yeah, sure. Pretty funny and interesting story. I don't know if a lot of your listeners or followers know, but Jeff is an avid baseball fan. Sports nut. And when I was in college, I went to Lynn University right here in the Palm Beaches, and this was back in the year 2000. And I was in the bullpen as a pitcher, and all of a sudden this guy just shows up, wearing a tank top and brings a gallon of water and just kind of hanging out and talking to all the players, and we just kind of hit it off. And Jeff and I have formed a bond, and his brother went on to play at Lynn University, was, I believe, an All-American player. And we've been in touch throughout the years. We've done holidays together. We do lunch quite often when I'm in town, and it was pretty funny. And we've worked together. We've done some baseball lessons and stuff like that. But this is pretty awesome, being able to be here with you and Jeff and Bryce. And I do want to say one thing about Bryce. Everything he does it's special, and it's a miracle. But Bryce, I want you to tell the listeners real quick about your catch play before games. It's unbelievable.
So after I spoke to the High Point team, Jamie Keefe, who's the High Point manager, and Billy Horn came out onto the field, and some of their players were also there, and we were throwing the ball back and forth, and I've been learning how to catch the ball in a baseball glove, so they had to help me get my glove positioned because I'm not so good at catching the ball, but I can do it decently enough. But I am much better at throwing the ball into someone's glove. When they tap their glove, I listen to that sound and just throw the ball right into their glove. So much better at throwing than I am at catching, but working on my catching throws back to me skills.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to watch. It really was.
All that.
Well, if you can throw and catch a baseball, Bryce, which I know you can because Billy actually wrote this down on a piece of paper. He said, please, I think he was saying, please mention it. I'm glad he brought it up. That is remarkable. You must have a very you're a very courageous guy, clearly.
I mean, catching the baseball was definitely much scarier than throwing the baseball to someone, because if I didn't catch it properly, it hit me in the head or who knows what. So
That's awesome. That's great. Well, we're going to take a break and listen to some music, which we do here at Praise You Lord. And this is a song by Ireland's number one tenor. His name is Emmet Cahill, and I really had a great wonderful blessing and opportunity to interview with him when from New York City. As a matter of fact, he called in when he first came into the country on his tour. I think that was at the beginning of 2019, or just right around the corner here. If you would like to hear the interview with Emmet Cahill, that is on the podcast number 103. Okay, so that's Praise You Lord number 103. And Emmet is really a very devout Catholic, and we hit it off really well. I mean, it was awesome. We're going to listen to his beautiful voice, and we're going to listen to Panis Angelicus. I believe Emmet hopefully will be coming around on tour again this coming season, and we will let you know. He expressed the desire to do another interview, and I'd love that. So here it is, Panis Angelicus by Emmet Cahill.
Dominum pauper
And that was Emmet Cahill, Ireland's number one tenor and good friend of the program. And if you get an opportunity to go out and see Emmet when he's in town, when he's here in the States, I would highly recommend it. It's going to be a big blessing. What a voice. He is just an incredible performer. And I'm just being reminded when I listen to his voice, it reminds me of his phone call when he had just come in. He had just flown in and he was setting up an apartment and waiting for a bed, actually, to fill his apartment in New York City. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute now, Coach Horn here is from New York City, right, Bill?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And that might be a good segue here, Bill. You're originally from the Bronx, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Born and raised.
Born and raised. You played ball. Did you play ball in the Bronx?
Yeah.
That's where you learned baseball.
Stick ball, wiffle ball, you name it.
That's fantastic. And so lean into that. Lean in like you're going out, like it's an inside fastball right there.
Well, I don't want to get too close then.
We're talking about the microphone, folks, for those who are listening. At any rate, and Billy is also someone who works with folks. I've seen he's really, in my opinion, very gifted at what he does. He's a great baseball coach. He was a great baseball man. He was a professional ball player. And I was fortunate enough, as he spoke, to watch him play in college at Lynn University, and we became friendly there. I was searching for a place for my brother, trying to do some research for my brother, and my brother did end up playing at Lynn University and had a very successful career there. Grateful for that, having him down here, and so Billy was part. Billy, talking about kind of finding, in my opinion, finding. Bryce, you said something very interesting. Being the best yourself you can be. Is that how you said that?
Yeah.
And I think that's the great quest for all of us. And I really feel like Billy, from the fruits that I see. I mean, Billy, for example, he became. He coached some high school around here, right? Yeah,
I coached a little high school and then got into college and then,
But hold on. The story's bigger than that. He goes to Lynn University for 1 year, becomes pitching coach. That was your first stint at college ball, I think.
It was.
And they win the World Series. They win it all. They win the World Series. Imagine that. Bryce, did you know that?
Yeah, I have read Coach Horn's biography before, so I know all of his facts about his life.
He knows me better than I know me.
I have never read that. I have to. Could you send me a link to that, Bryce?
Just type in news for Billy Horn into Google and just read about 10 pages down, and you'll have eventually read everything about his life.
Perfect. Well, listen, if you're looking for the story behind the story, I might be a good source.
There you go. Don't read page 11.
And I appreciate Billy. He's toning it down for the conversation. The story has traditionally gone that when he saw me, I was wearing not a tank top, a wife beater. That's how he usually expresses it.
I didn't know if I was allowed to say that on this broadcast.
And I had just moved down to South Florida, and I was like, man, it's so hot down here. So I had some type of tank top on, but whatever. And I would just sit and watch how the team was being coached, and I was wondering if it would be a good fit for my brother, and it ended up being a great fit. And so Billy goes on. He ends up winning the World Series as the pitching coach, and he also was played in Italy as a player and a coach, professional baseball. And now you've been coaching professionally now in internet ball now for quite some time.
In independent baseball, yes.
Independent baseball. Yep. He also is the owner of a very interesting company and founder, and that is called Meet a Prospect. You can find that on social media, any social media network. It's a social media network for athletes and coaches, scouts, etc. And Billy has been the conduit in his business has been a conduit for many of these young guys finding a team. How many people have actually ended up getting signed to pro ball through that?
Since our inception about 5 years ago, through our contacts, we've helped over 180 free agent players find a home to play professionally, whether it be independent ball here in the United States or internationally.
Wow. That is wonderful. How many guys have you been involved with coaching wise that have got up to the big leagues?
Oh, quite a few.
I know that.
Yeah, quite a few. Guys that I've coached throughout independent ball, I've had 5 that have gone from independent ball to organizations and up to the big leagues.
Sure.
And just from being in the Atlantic League and in independent ball the last 5 years, I've probably coached about 30 to 40, major league experienced players. It's been a good ride so far, and I'm just trying to enjoy it every day.
That's wonderful. Well, you're great at what you do, Bill, and you're a good man. And so, Bryce, what was your experience with Coach Horn? I know I always hear positive things about your experience. Tell us about that event.
Sitting in the High Point dugout was great. I spoke to High Point's team the first game of the series and played some catch on the field with Jamie Keefe, and Coach Horn came out. And then the second game, I was in the dugout for 3 or 4 innings, and I had so much fun. I wanted to do it again the third game of the series, so I did it again for the third game of the series. The New Britain Bees coaches were a little disappointed in me that I was sitting with the High Point Rockers coaches, and I said, well, you guys never invited me to sit in your dugout. This was the first invitation I had received by someone to sit in the dugout, and my parents told me you should never ask yourself into places, and High Point invited me into their dugout, so I wasn't inviting myself.
Yeah, we're glad we did. We had such a fun time, and because I coach first base, so I was only in for half of the time he was there. The other times, I'm out coaching first, and so when I come in there and he's talking to Asher Tolliver and Richie Schaefer, some of our big league players. They're talking about everything under the sun but baseball. It was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
That's beautiful.
So, okay, so the basically the story is I meet Billy 19 years in 2000, and we become friendly and have known each other throughout all this time. He goes and he's traveling. He's playing since then. He's playing pro ball in Italy. He's coaching in Italy. He's coaching all over the place, different locations, college, and so on. He starts this successful model business. I was there for the inception of it. I was there to see the seeds planted, and now we're seeing so many lives changed, and these young men are finding teams to play ball in. It's just fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it really is. It is a blessing, and about 5 years ago, we had just gotten kind of sick and tired of seeing these kids and families pay all this money just to have video and be recruited.
I know
and
that's so true.
And we decided to do something here, and we have this network now that's all over social media, and it just helps these players connect to athletes and scouts and coaches and agents, and it's more than just baseball. It's more about life, because when you're an athlete, especially in your early 20s out of college, you don't know what you're going to do, and a lot of times, especially as baseball players, most of the time we're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Most of the time we're either going to get into baseball and coaching, or we're going to be an entrepreneur or something of that nature. And it's so great to see the connections that you make, and that's the beautiful thing about this game. And meeting you 3 gentlemen through baseball or life or whatever, these guys they make such impactful connections. And then it's, well, this guy just moved to Australia because he got a job there, or this guy moved to Germany, or this guy moved to California, and well, he met his girlfriend who's now his wife when they were playing. And just the impact that we've made it's just so special, and it's a true blessing. And now we're starting to do events in person, and we're flying in managers and coaches and scouts. And we were just up in Boston, and we had 9 guys sign professional contracts on the spot.
Wonderful.
Last year we had 11 guys sign on the spot here in Florida. We just booked another event in Sarasota, Florida, January 13th and 14th. So we're really, really happy about the connections we're making, and really giving these guys more opportunity, and obviously in baseball, but also in life.
Well, you're social. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's Bryce actually. What I think that Coach Horn does well with his scouting service is he really focuses on helping people beyond baseball to develop their their life goals and their life dreams. There are many scouting services out there, but they solely focus on just getting players to a certain team or job or things like that. And Coach Horn has recognized that it's important to help these players learn what they want to do with their life, because at some point they're not going to be able to play baseball and sports, because no one can play forever. And I think over time, parents, families, and coaches have really understood the value of taking advantage of what Coach Horn has to offer with his service, because it's more than just getting a certain player to a certain role on a team. It is preparing the player as well for that second aspect of life after or life beyond baseball and sports.
Yeah, amen to that,
That's
Bryce.
tremendous.
It is tremendous.
That's absolutely tremendous. Coming from, as Jeffrey said early in the broadcast, coming from Boston, it's in our DNA to be into sports. If not, we get thrown in the dumpster. My initial goal in life, my one true thing that I wanted to do, is play basketball for the Celtics, and I didn't have the knees for it. Unfortunately, I made it as a walk-on on my college team, but on the first scrimmage, I went up for a rebound. Somebody stepped on my foot as I was jumping, and that was the last time I hyperextended my knee, and I needed something else to do. I was so singularly focused on basketball, and as I'm sure Coach Horn can attest, there's the odds of making it all the way to the show and having a successful, sustainable career are astronomical in the scheme of things, especially with so many incredibly talented athletes out there in the programs to prep everybody for the sport, whichever sport it is. And basically, I was lost. The only other thing that I knew how to do was write poetry, and a professor said, "Gosh, that poem you just wrote looks like it should be a song lyric." And because I didn't know what else to do, I went out and bought a guitar and taught myself how to play, which gave me another thing to work towards in life. And thankfully, in a lot of ways, it's really worked out. But I think that having something that not only works, like you say, on hooking an athlete up with a team, or helping a team find a position player that they're weak on, but really helping people with the aspects of life of being an athlete and life after the actual playing days are over, and still being able to be involved. That's just beautiful.
It is. It really is. And for those who are listening in, you're listening to Praise You Lord, episode number 124. And we are being broadcast on 20 stations. If you're listening to any of those stations, we thank you so much. We don't ask for your money. We're voluntary ministry, but we do ask for your prayer. So if you are being blessed by this broadcast, please pray for us at the radio broadcast. The radio stations that play us, we're so grateful for. They are non-for-profit, and you can donate to them if you'd like. And so whichever one you're listening to, if you feel led to, you can give there. We have a lot of charitable, a couple charities here that are being represented. We have Bryce's, Bryce is, for those who are tuning in right now, Bryce is a blind 28-year-old man who can play catch on a professional baseball diamond, sit in the dugout, and he loves baseball, he loves sports, and he loves it so much, and he loves people, clearly, and he is all about people. That's what I've learned about Bryce, and he wants to help people who have disabilities to be able to have experiences that are difficult for them to have. And so he's been able to do that through the Baltimore Orioles organization, Major League Baseball, and other big teams, including Coach Horn's ball clubs. And so Bryce is now trying to get that same flair, that same mission into with music, and that's how I've become involved. And now Jeff Millar Sax, who's out on the West Coast, and he's in Yucaipa, I believe. Am I saying that correctly, Jeff? Yep.
correctly. Yes.
Yep, and he has a benefit concert, and he has a band that he's been working with and coaching, basically, and leading and helping them to learn how to become a working band, even though they have disabilities. So I've been able to put Bryce Weiler in contact with Jeff Millar Sax. And Jeff, when is that benefit concert?
It is on November 16th. And I'm not super skilled with social media, but there is a post about it. It's a benefit for Russ Anderson at Brewcaipa, BREWCAIPA, in Yucaipa, California. And for people who can't make it, because it's a long drive from West Palm Beach, and anywhere else that are listening, and want to help out a really beautiful lady and their son and his small family, Russ's widow Valerie, they have a PayPal address set up. It's called it's God's Kids at Verizon.net, spelled GDSKDS, but basically it's God's Kids at Verizon.net. And anybody that feels the need to want to help Valerie, Russ's widow, who is a diabetic and not really in a well-paying job, to help save the house and cover some of the expenses that she's had to deal with since Russ has passed away, and she's lost that extra income, and dealing with death is expensive.
Jeff, you're breaking up a little bit here, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, and maybe you can speak up more, a little more. But how do people read about this event, or is there something online that they can?
It's on Facebook. I really, that's the thing I struggle with.
Okay, it's on Facebook.
They look for a benefit for Russ Anderson.
Benefit for Russ Anderson. Okay.
In Yucaipa, California, on the 16th of this month. And
I think the takeaway here, Jeff, if you don't mind me saying, you're breaking up pretty badly. Unfortunately, you wouldn't hear that on our end, on your end. But the big takeaway is the story, And for those who are wanting to donate to that event, you can get in touch with us at Praise You Lord, and we are contact at pylpodcast.com. Contact at pylpodcast.com. We're looking at the God for Kids Facebook page. Very easy to find. Billy Horn, Coach Horn, found it immediately. It's God for Kids. Just search for that is that in Facebook? Is that Facebook?
Yes.
Yes, right in Facebook. So God for Kids, 3 words. Jeff, before the program ends, I want to get one of your tunes in, and this is from the Giving Shelter Project. You can visit In Season. What is your website again, Jeff? Sorry. Giving Shelter.
GivingShelter.net.
GivingShelter.net. You can. That's shelter for cancer patients and their families who are traveling to get help medically, and that is a very, very viable and important cause that we support strongly here at Praise You Lord. We're going to play one of the songs from his album. It's about a true story about him speaking to a good friend of his and encouraging them to get off of a ledge. They were going to commit suicide, and it became a song. And this friend thankfully decided not to commit suicide. This album is chock full of some of the most famous musicians in the world. Jeff, just maybe you could name a few people on this album real quick, and who they played with and so on.
Bobby Kimball, the lead singer from Toto, the original lead singer. Bernard Fowler from the Rolling Stones. Michael Landau from Seal. James Taylor, and virtually everybody else on lead guitar. John Jorgensen, another one who toured with Elton John for nearly 20 years, and so many others. Neil Steubenhouse, the bass player to the Stars. Alfonso Johnson from Santana played bass.
Jeff, you're fading out. I'm so sorry, Jeff. It's just not coming in clearly for some reason.
let me see how I can do this.
Yeah, well, we're running out of time. The show's almost over. Let me get the song in, and you can go to givingshelter.net. Just some of them. And by the way, Michael, would you look up all of the different podcasts Jeff's been on? We'll use those as references as well. You'll hear his whole story. So here we're going to play at least part of the song and then wrap it up. This is from givingshelter.net. The song is Try to Remember, and it's from the album called Giving Shelter. In my opinion, the best album in the last 20 years. I mean, it's just an incredible album. Go out and buy it, and you can get that at givingshelter.net.
Since my childhood days, you don't go out and get half crazed. You can have your cake and eat it too. Hey, listen, Junior, I'm telling you. Hey, Junior, I'm telling you. You got better things to do. When it's late, just sit for you. Stop thinking those silly notions, running away, overdosing. The quitter's way just ain't for you. You'll get what you want if you just see it through. You gotta try to remember life is okay. You can't wait for tomorrow. Better get it on today. You gotta try to remember while you believe. I know you're gonna receive. You gotta try. Love's no good if you don't show it. It's there for the taking, now you won't blow it. Open your heart, I know you can. Love will lead you to that promised land. You gotta try to remember life is okay. You can't wait for tomorrow. Better get it on today. You gotta try to remember while you believe. Put your faith on it. I know you're gonna receive. You gotta try to remember. You are my friend. Together we'll reach that pot of gold that rainbow's in. You gotta
I'm going to do the radio fade out of that tune right there because we're just about to finish up here on Praise You Lord, episode number 124. If you want to hear about Jeff Millar Sax's story, you can go to podcast number 118, 100, number 118, number 100, number 90, or number 64. Bryce, Weiler, Jeff Millar Sax, and Billy Horn, thank you all so much for being in here on the broadcast.
Thank you.
So welcome.
Been a blessing.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for having me on.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, so for those who are listening in, thanks again for your prayers, and we'll look forward to seeing or hearing or being with you next time, hopefully next weekend. God bless you and your families, and most of all, praise you, Lord.